Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. Let's call Rog so we can get the show on the road. It's a lovely Wednesday. The weather looks great. I might go outside. Good morning.
Answer, not the lie.
All good.
All right. It's 6 o'clock, huh? All right.
Hello.
You can probably hang up your deal there.
Ain't got my deal.
Looking for my headphones.
Headphones.
All right, man. There we go. We got some audio, we got some video. Right, man. So yeah, we got some redecorating. I moved the chair over here, so we have a new angle.
Oh, look at that. We can see that door that's always open.
Yeah, well. Yeah. Right, man. This is new because I've not worked out this angle just yet. Here we are. There's the door, huh? Okay, don't want that. We want this. All right. Stand. All right. We're new. We're live. Let me
Well,
get my mouse.
Not really live, but
Sort of live. Or after 6, that's pretty live.
your clock is wrong. It's 7 after 6.
7? No.
7 and 4 look similar, to be fair.
That's use the microwave as the clock. That's what you get. How we doing? Doing all right?
Yeah, it's Wednesday, so weather's good.
All right, man. Guess we're good. You ready for your stories?
I am.
All right.
Today on Before Coffee, UBS to make a $35 billion in Credit Suisse takeover, but lost $17 billion in a rushed deal.
Donna Deegan defeats Daniel Davis for Jacksonville mayor, becoming the first woman to win the office in city history.
Wow.
Duval.
Nicolas Sarkozy to wear electronic tag after losing corruption sentence appeal.
U.S. charges Apple ex-employee for trying to steal technology, fleeing to China.
Fossil fuels. Norway under pressure to scale back fossil fuel expansion plans.
And repelled by higher car prices, Americans are holding on to their vehicles longer than ever. Today, on May 17th, 2023 edition of Before Coffee.
All right, let's get into my first news story here about the UBS, I think it's the something Switzerland Bank, or Bank Switzerland, and how they're taking over the Credit Suisse in a botched deal, I guess is what they're trying to say, because they lost money. I don't know. UBS is in line to make almost 35 billion or 28 billion pounds gain after its emergency takeover Credit Suisse, but has said it will take a 17 billion hit from costs related to rushed rescue deal. The Swiss lender has said it will make gains of 34.8 billion after taking on Credit Suisse, based on an initial assessment of data until the end of the last year. According to regulatory filing, the accounting gain will be one of the biggest ever reported by a bank in a single quarter. So why exactly are you complaining about it then? Like, you should be happy to make 1 billion, let alone 35. However, UBS is also estimating it could rack up almost 4 billion in costs related to litigation, regulatory matters, and other liabilities after the takeover of its smaller rival. UBS is also expecting to take a 13 billion hit from asset and liability adjustments in the group, meaning the takeover will cost 17 billion. And the regulatory filing said Credit Suisse faces a number of restrictions around its business until the 3.4 billion deal completes. A group of Credit Suisse investors who lost bonds worth more than 4.5 billion or Uh, CHF? What is CHF? I don't know which currency that is. Or 4 billion pounds. We're already suing Switzerland's financial regulator over its decision to wipe out risky bank debt as part of a government-brokered takeover deal in March. The extent to which UBS was a reluctant partner in the deal to buy Credit Suisse has become clear, says Suzanne Streeter, head of money and markets in Hargreaves Lansdowne. The Swiss bank has had to absorb a painful loss after being rushed into taking over its beleaguered rival. It is a heavy cost to bear and has been partly put down to the lack of time it was able to complete due to diligences and access to the web of problems of Credit Suisse. Unlike a standard deal where parties have months to do due diligence, the Credit Suisse deal was hammered out in 48 hours, with UBS executives pointing out the risks they are taking integrating the business. Shares in UBS, which had been under pressure since the deal to avoid Credit Suisse facing bankruptcy, were flat in early trading in Zurich on Wednesday. Last month, worried UBS investors urged the Swiss lender to avoid sweeping job cuts and inflating executive pay as they raised concerns about the creation of a megabank after the emergency takeover. It's gonna be a megabank! Get your bank accounts ready for the megabank takeover in Switzerland. That's the end of my story.
CHF, isn't that Swiss francs or something like that, maybe?
Yeah, something. I don't know.
If they still have those things.
I don't know why they just don't say what it is instead of giving me the freaking...
It was election day in several places in America. One of those places was Florida, where old Ron DeSantis was testing his political muscle by endorsing a candidate in a normally Republican place in Florida, and his candidate was beaten.
Yay!
By a woman in a Democrat in a and believe me, I've been to Jacksonville plenty of times. It's one of the biggest cities in the United States, an area.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have an urban center. It's all spread out, and it's very conservative. And now they've elected a Democrat in the state that's reliably Republican. Okay, former TV anchor Donna Deegan beat Jacksonville Chamber CEO Daniel Davis. So in the alliteration sweepstakes, Donna Deegan and Daniel Davis. In a stunning upset for Jacksonville mayor, becoming the first woman ever and only the second Democrat to win a mayor's office race here in 3 decades, despite Davis outracing her 4-1. Deegan, a Democrat, campaigned on a promise to be change maker, rallying against political consultant class that surrounded both Davis and current mayor Lenny Curry. The two emerged from a field of 8 candidates who competed in jungle primary. Love won today, Deegan told the crowd at her watch party Tuesday night. She will take office in July. Davis, a former city council member and state representative, had been preparing for this mayoral race for 8 years when fellow Republican Lenny Curry was elected mayor. He mostly relied on his fundraising prowess to reach voters through mailers, text messages, and advertisement. He raised a record-breaking $8.4 million by the end of April compared to Deegan's $2.1 million. Deegan is a former First Coast news anchor and founder of the Donna Foundation, a nonprofit funding breast cancer research and supporting females dealing with breast cancer. She becomes the first woman to make it to a mayoral runoff for Jacksonville history. Jacksonville is the most populous city in the country. Jacksonville is the most populous city in the country with a Republican mayor, and under the city's consolidated government, Jacksonville's mayor has extraordinary power that surpasses many other cities' mayors. Davis' campaign most prominently featured Jacksonville's Sheriff T.K. Waters, with Davis vowing to increase the number of police officers while cutting city budgets. How are you going to do that? One of the most important tasks for the new mayor is appointing a general counsel who can issue binding opinions over many levels of government, including the Duval County School District. This is a story by Andrew Fantazzi of The Tributary, which is a northern Florida independent newspaper collective or journalism collective.
All right.
And another story yesterday election where DeSantis endorsed somebody. They had a Republican primary for governor in Kentucky, and the candidate that DeSantis endorsed came in third with around 6% of the vote. So he's got a lot of political muscle. His candidate came in third, just ahead of farting in the elevator. So your story.
All right, well, congratulations on Jacksonville. Let's see the whole rest of them get just a bunch of women politicians. They're not all good, but some of them are, just like normal politicians.
Right.
Speaking of politicians...
This is revolutionary. She was not favored to win at all. Anyway.
Speaking of politician, a French appeals court has upheld the prison sentence against the former president, Nicolas Sarkozy, for corruption and influence peddling, maintaining he should serve 1 year's detention at home with an electronic bracelet. Oh, boo-hoo. Like the most lenient... You're a corrupt politician and you just have to stay home in the comfort of your own home with a bracelet on.
And the maid's only going to change the sheets once a week.
Oh, no. Sarkozy was originally convicted in 2021 of trying to bribe a magistrate in exchange for information about a legal case in which he was implicated. It was the first time in modern French history the former president was given a prison sentence for corruption. He had appealed against the verdict. But Sarkozy, 68, who was France's right-wing president from 2007 to 2012, and remains an influential figure, continues to deny wrongdoing, and his lawyer said he will now challenge the ruling at France's highest court. Nicolas Sarkozy is innocent, his lawyer Jacqueline Lafont told reporters. We will take this all the way. We are just at the beginning of the process. Sarkozy's full sentence was 3 years in prison, which includes 2 years suspended and 1 year that could be served at home with an electronic bracelet. He was also banned from public office for 3 years. Only 3 years? Ban him for 10 years. If Sarkozy does challenge the verdict in France's highest court, the Court of the Cassation, any potential sentence will not begin until the court has ruled. The case has centered around allegations that Sarkozy and his lawyer, Thierry Herzog, have formed a corruption pact with the judge to obtain and share information about a legal investigation. The trial came after investigators wiretapped Sarkozy's 2 official phone lines and discovered that he also had a third unofficial one taken out in 2014 under the name Paul Bismuth, through which he communicated with Herzog. The contents of these phone calls led to the 2021 corruption verdict. On the first day of the appeal during December last year, Sarkozy said he had never corrupted anybody. That's not what corruption means. It means you're corrupt, not that you corrupted anyone. You corrupted yourself. The case is one of many legal investigations that have hung over Sarkozy since he left office. He will be retried on appeal from November 2023 in the so-called Bajmalian case, which at first saw him sentenced to 1 year in prison. In that case, the prosecution accused Sarkozy's team of spending nearly double the legal limit on his lavish 2012 re-election campaign, using false billing from a public relations firm called Bajmalian. He has denied any wrongdoing. Last week, French prosecutors demanded Sarkozy face trial over alleged Libyan financing of his 2007 presidential election campaign. Financial crime prosecutors say Sarkozy and 12 others should face trial over allegations they sought millions of euros in financing from the regime of the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi for the campaign. Sarkozy is accused of corruption, illegal campaign financing, and concealing the embezzlement of public funds. He rejects all the charges. Investigating judges have not yet ruled whether a trial will go ahead. Despite his legal problems, Sarkozy will still enjoy considerable influence and popularity on the right of French politics, and regularly has conversations with President Emmanuel Macron. That's a huge red flag if I've ever seen one. Dude, even if it's not true that he's corrupt, you should stay as far away from that as possible as a political leader. That guy might be corrupt. I'm just gonna stand on the other side of the room, not have regular meetings with him. Hey, tell me, how do you if you wanted to get away with corruption, what would you have changed? I don't know if that's what they're having in the meetings, but I wouldn't be surprised. That's what they're talking about. Before Sarkozy, the only French leader to be convicted in a criminal trial was his predecessor, Jacques Chirac, who received a 2-year suspended sentence in 2011 for corruption over a fake job scandal relating to his time as Paris mayor.
Jacques Chirac. You missed a golden opportunity to say Chirac. Sorry.
That's the end of my story.
All right. Well, I didn't miss that golden opportunity.
Jacques Chirac.
Like you're choking on a hairball. There you go. It's clear now. U.S. charges Apple ex-employee for trying to steal technology fleeing to China. This is Reuters' story. United States on Tuesday announced charges in 5 cases involving alleged efforts to steal technology to benefit China, Russia, and Iran, including former Apple Inc. engineer accused of targeting the company's technology and autonomous systems, including self-driving cars, and then fleeing to China.
Ooh.
The case is detailed at a Justice Department press conference centered on allegations concerning the theft of trade secrets and other technology. 2 of the cases involved what U.S. officials call procurement networks created to help Russia's military and intelligence services obtain sensitive technology. The 5 cases were announced by U.S. Strike Force, formed in February, in part to protect sensitive technology, though the investigations began before it was created. We stand vigilant in enforcing U.S. laws to stop the flow of sensitive technologies to foreign adversaries, Matt Olson, the head of the Justice Department's National Security Division, told reporters. We are committed to doing all we can to prevent these advanced tools from falling into the hands of foreign adversaries. The former Apple engineer, identified as 35-year-old Waibao Wang.
Oh, no.
Weibao Wang.
Now he's gonna be accused of being a freaking spy the whole time.
We're gonna be calling him Mr. Wang from now on, just for your information. Formerly resided in Mountain View, California, and was hired by Apple in 2016, according to the April indictment unsealed Tuesday. In 2017, Wang accepted a U.S.-based job with a Chinese company working to develop. Wang was one of the first famous computer companies. It was the name of one of the first big computer companies.
Oh, really?
They went under. I don't know why. According to an April indictment unsealed on Tuesday. We did that already, didn't we? All right, okay. He waited about 4 months before he formed Apple his new job, according to the indictment. So he accepted a US-based job with a Chinese company working to develop self-driving cars before resigning from Apple, but waited about 4 months before informing Apple of his new job, according to the indictment. That's the whole sentence. After his last day in Apple, the company discovered that he had accessed large amounts of proprietary data in the days before his departure, the Justice Department said. Federal agents searched his home in 2018 and found the large quantities of data from Apple. It added, shortly after the search, he boarded a plane to China, the department said. An American flag waves outside. Oh, that's a picture description. Sorry. Apple's automotive efforts, known as Project Titan, have proceeded unevenly since 2014 when the company started to design a vehicle from scratch. Now, you're not supposed to make it from scratch. That's how you make a cake. A December report said Apple had postponed the car's planned launch in 2016. Reports filed with the State Department show Apple is testing vehicles on the state's roads. Apple declined to comment on the case. In the second case related to China, U.S. prosecutors announced that charges against Leming Lee, 64, of Rancho Cucamonga, California, for allegedly stealing trade secrets from his California-based employers to build his own competing business in China. Prosecutors in New York also charged Nicolas Bogonakilos, 49, of Greece, with smuggling U.S. origin military technologies to Russia while he was operating as a defense contractor for NATO. Russian nationals Oleg Sergeyevich Patsolya and Vasily Sergeyevich Besedin were each charged in Arizona for allegedly using Florida-based company to send aircraft parts to Russian airline companies, while the Commerce Department, in a parallel action, suspended their export privileges. In addition, prosecutors in New York announced charges against Zhang Kuo, also known as Johansson, for allegedly using a Chinese company that is a target of American sanctions to provide materials used in the production of weapons of mass destruction in Iran. Kuo and Wang remain at large in China, while the other 4 defendants were arrested, U.S. officials said. Attorneys for Pasula and Bezeden, who were arrested on May 11, did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The attorney for Lee did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Reuters could not determine who is representing Bogdanikos. This is Thomas Reuters byline. Your story.
Okay. In my next article, we'll be looking at the expansion of fossil fuel in Norway. The Norwegian government is facing growing pressure to scale back its huge global fossil fuel expansion plans, including the development of a controversial new oil field in the North Sea. Norway loves its oil, and that's why they don't join the EU, because they've got that oil.
Oh, you don't give
from
it.
around the world descended on Stavanger in Norway last week to attend the AGM of the state-owned oil and gas giant Equinor. They warned that its plans to develop the huge Rosebank field in the North Sea, as well as other mega projects in Canada, Brazil, and Suriname, would drive climate breakdown with devastating consequences for humanity. Climate campaigners accuse the Norwegian government, which owns 67% of Equinor, of hypocrisy. They argue that at the same time that they're portraying itself as a climate leader on the world stage, the Norwegian state is plowing ahead with new oil and gas developments around the world. Recent analysis by Oil Change International found Norway is Europe's most aggressive explorer of new oil and gas fields, awarding 700 new exploration licenses in the past decade, as well as Equinor's specific plans. In addition, it found the oil and gas within fields that are already licensed but not yet developed could lead to an additional 3 gigatons of CO2 emissions, 60 times Norway's annual domestic emissions. Frode Plame, the head of Greenpeace Norway, said, "Norway is rightly praised for its success of its electric vehicles. It was one of the first countries to ratify the Paris Accords, but at the same time, it is planning to lock in oil and gas production for decades to come." It wants to be the last one standing, I see. We have all the oil now, fuckers. Now you have to pay us.
Right
because
on.
it's completely impossible for us to turn around how we've developed since, the 1800s. Since steam power, we've been using oil and gas, right? And it's going to take much longer for us to stop doing that. Or one country can have all of it and make as much money as possible before it runs out.
Yeah.
Or the earth dies. One of those will happen. The Rosebank project is one of Equinor's most controversial schemes and is facing widespread opposition in the UK, mostly because the UK probably also wants the oil, not just because it's bad for the environment. The massive North Sea development, 3 times bigger than the Cambo field that was put on hold more than a year ago, it has the potential to produce 500 million barrels of oil, which, when burned, would emit as much as carbon dioxide as running 56 coal-fired power stations for a year. Last month, it was revealed that the Rosebank would effectively blow the UK's carbon budget into the next decade. Yeah, see, that's what I thought. You take all of the slack, we'll make all the money, okay? A greenhouse gas emissions from its operation alone, not counting emissions from any oil produced, would exceed the guideline amount for the oil and gas sector. The campaign group Uplift has also calculated that Equinor could receive an estimated $3.75 billion of tax breaks and tax-funded incentives towards the estimated $4.1 billion cost of development, owing to the loopholes in the government's windfall tax on North Sea fossil fuels. About 80% of the fossil fuels produced by Rosebank are likely to be exploited, and the development could turn into a net loss of $100 million to the UK taxpayer. The spokesperson for Equinor denied it was in line for any tax breaks or that UK taxpayers would lose out. They added, "Oil and gas will be needed in the decades ahead. As long as there's a need for oil and gas, we think it's important that we continue to invest in fields that can contribute to the energy sector with a low carbon footprint. while creating jobs and value for society. Sure. Yeah, you're creating jobs and value. That's all that matters. Not that there won't be a planet to live on because you burned it all down. The International Energy Agency warned before the UK hosted COP26 Climate Summit in 2021 that no new oil and gas exploration should take place if the world was to limit global heating to 1.5 C above pre-industrial temperatures. This year, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called on governments to halt new license for oil and gas exploration and development. A decision on whether Rosebait can go ahead is believed to be imminent, and the UK government could stop it, though the Energy Secretary, Grant Shapps, has said repeatedly the decision is not up to him. Opponents of the project are working with climate activists from Norway, Brazil, Canada, and Argentina to try to stop Equinor's wider expansion plans. In a statement, Halvard Ingebrigtsen, the Secretary of State of Norway's Ministry of Trade, Industry and Fisheries, said, in the new white paper on the state's direct ownership, the government states that our goal as an owner is the highest possible return over time in a sustainable manner. We also state that it requires the companies to balance economic, social, and environmental factors. So basically said, oh no, we're just a stockholder. That's their responsibility to make sure that they don't burn down the planet, not ours, okay? We just own stocks, okay?
We're just making money. That's all we're doing.
It's not our problem. If we believe them when they say they're environmentally planned their takeover of, what was it again? 500 million oil a day. They're totally up to them. Norway is the first country to expect companies with the state ownership to have short and long-term climate targets in line with the Paris Agreement, which implies net zero emission by 2050. And we're going to continually keep moving that number from 2050 to 2060, 2070, over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Until the planet burns down.
Until they all retire in their beach villas in Antarctica.
Exactly. Well, there won't be in Antarctica. It'll probably melt.
Well, yeah, it'll be a nice beach, though. They're landing all that ice.
That's my story, by the way. That's the end.
Right on. Okay, here's a story from Tom Kirshner of AP. Repelled by high car prices, Americans are holding on to their vehicles longer than ever. With the new and used cars still painfully expensive, Ryan Holdsworth says he plans to keep his 9-year-old Chevy Cruze for at least 4 more years, limiting his car payments. He's still making car payments on a 9-year-old car. Somebody just make it stop. Limiting his car payments and his overall debt is a bigger priority for him than having a new vehicle. You're still paying for a 9-year-old vehicle. Dude, come on. 35-year-old grocery store worker from Grand Rapids, Michigan, Holdsworth would probably be in the market for a vehicle within a few years, if not for the high costs. For now, it's out of the question. We're not going to get one for a price you can afford, he said. Holdsworth has plenty of company. Americans are keeping their cars longer than ever. The average age of a passenger vehicle on the road hit a record 12.5 years earlier this year, according to the data gathered by S&P Global Mobility. Sedans like Holdsworth are even older, on the average 13.6 years. Blame it mainly on the pandemic, which in 2020 triggered a global shortage of automotive computer chips, the vital component that runs everything from radios to gas pedals. Well, it doesn't run gas pedals to transmissions. Your foot runs a gas pedal. It's a pedal. What a silly sentence. The shortage drastically showed global assembly lines, making new vehicles scarce on dealer lots just when consumers are increasingly eager to buy. Prices reached record highs, and though they've eased somewhat, the cost of a vehicle still feels punishingly expensive to many Americans, especially when compared with much higher loan rates. Since the pandemic struck 3 years ago, the average new vehicle is rocketed 24% to nearly $48,000 as of April, according to Edmunds.com. Typical loan rates on new car purchases have ballooned to 7%, a consequence of the Federal Reserve's aggressive streak of interest rate hikes to fight inflation, which is completely stopped, but hey, let's keep fighting it. Comparatively, it stopped. compared to most countries. It's all pushed the national average monthly auto loan payments to $729 a month, prohibitively higher for many. No crap. Experts say that a family earning a median U.S. household income can no longer afford the average new car payment and still cover such necessities as housing, food, and utilities. Used vehicle prices on average have surged even more since the pandemic hit, up nearly 40%, the average of $29,000, with the average loan rate having 11%, a typical monthly used vehicle payment of $563. Faced with deciding between making a jumbo payment and keeping their existing vehicles, more owners are choosing to stick with what they have, even if it means spending more on repairs and maintenance. Auto mechanics have been struck by the rising ages and mileages of vehicles that now arrive in the shop in numbers they've never seen before. You see cars from all the time in here, with 250,000, 300,000 miles, said Jay Nuber, owner of the Japanese Auto Professional Service, a repair garage near downtown Ann Arbor, Michigan. They haven't been really having a major work or anything. They've just been doing routine service. That doesn't mean that most owners of older vehicles are necessarily stuck with constant repair bills. One reason people can hold their vehicles for increasingly long periods of time is auto manufacturing has improved over time. Engines run longer, bodies don't rust as quickly, components last longer. Yet the cost of buying either a new or used vehicle is leaving more people with essentially no choice but to keep the one they have. The repair versus buy equation changed, said Todd Campow, an associate director with S&P. Even with rising repair costs, Campow said, it's still typically more cost-effective to fix an older vehicle than to spring for a purchase. The average vehicle age, which has been edging up since 2019, accelerated this year by substantial 3 months. And while 12.5 years is the average, Campow noted, more vehicles are staying on the road for nearly 20 years or more, sometimes with 3 or 4 successive owners. In such cases, a third or fourth owner is getting much older car than they would have in the past. Nearly 122 million vehicles on the road were more than a dozen years old.
Wow.
Campow said. S&P predicts that the number of older vehicles will keep growing at least until 2028. Even with more durable vehicles able to last longer, all of these has created a boom for auto time has created a boom time for auto shops. Through most of last year, Nuber's Japanese Auto was overwhelmed with customers. It took up to 3 weeks to get an appointment, whether for repairs or routine maintenance that older vehicles in particular require. The phone just kept ringing and then the cars just kept coming, Nuber said. It's now the point where some vehicle owners must decide whether to pay for a repair costs more than the vehicle is worth. That's where many of them draw the line, said Dave Weber, management of Japanese Auto. On Friday, Weber said one customer needed rear brakes, wheel bearings, and exhaust system repairs. The customer decided to do only half the repairs and wait until later to decide whether to sink more money into the aging vehicle. They patch them up and drive them however long until the next major repair, Weber said. S&P predicts that U.S. new vehicle sales will reach 1.4 million this year from about 14.5 million this year from about 13.9 million last year. A big reason is that the supply of dealerships is finally growing. Automakers have also begun to restore some discounts that had long helped keep the lid on prices. The result is that many people who can afford to buy can now do so. It is a trend that could slow the advancing age of the U.S. fleet and boost overall sales. As for Hollingworth, the Chevy Cruze owner, he plans to keep it up with scheduled maintenance on his car, especially routine oil changes. Even if he encountered a major repair, he thinks he'd probably pay for it. Having bought this vehicle 2 years ago, Hollingworth has about 2 years of payments left, so his Cruze 2 may reach a 12.5-year national average. I'll finish paying it off, he said, and I'll drive it for a couple more years. Not sad that he's paying it off, it's sad that he has 2 years of payments left on a 9-year-old car.
Oh, God. What? We live in a society.
Probably financed at 11%. Go ahead.
All right, in culture news, let's talk about The Weeknd. Famous, I would say like he's a R&B slash Maybe hip-hop singer. The Weeknd wants to get rid of stage name. It's really just marketing.
Right.
The popular singer The Weeknd wants to get rid of his stage name. The singer, whose real name is Abel Tesfaye, says in an interview with W Magazine that he is going through a liberating phase right now. He joins a list of illustrious predecessors who, for various reasons, left behind the name they were known by. The album I'm working on right now is probably my last work as The Weeknd, he says. There is something I have to do. As The Weeknd, I've said everything I want to say. On Instagram and Twitter, among others, the artist has changed his name to his real name. According to Fernando Hallman, radio DJ and Fun X, changing an artist's name is sometimes a good way to draw attention to you again. He mentions, among others, rapper and producer Puff Daddy, who later went on to call himself Diddy. Basically, it's just marketing. With The Weeknd, I think he just wants to bring a new sound. And to your fans, you say this: we're moving and you have to go to the new store. He probably also fulfilled all his contractual obligations, so this could be the start of a fresh era as a creative. I think Abel wants to share new, never-before-told stories with the world that maybe he couldn't share from the hit machine, The Weeknd. The Weeknd is one of the most popular artists of recent years. He scores hits all the time, and his song Blinding Lights is the most listened to song over on Spotify with more than 3 billion streams. In 2021, he also performed as the main act at the halftime at the Super Bowl, the largest sporting event in the United States. Yes, famously, he had the COVID Super Bowl halftime show where basically there's nobody there, and he had the whole arena to himself because, like, there's only the team was in the arena, basically. Him and the team, and that's it.
No, they had fans.
Okay.
They had fans for that one. That was in Tampa. Go ahead.
Abel says he wants to kill The Weeknd eventually. I'm trying to get rid of the fucker. No, he doesn't say that. I'm trying to get rid of the skin and be reborn, he says. The words are somewhat reminiscent of how David Bowie once put an end to his successful alter ego, Ziggy Stardust. He created the character of Ziggy Stardust as a rock star alien in 1972. He made 2 albums singing about it and toured for 2 years playing the role of Ziggy Stardust. Bowie symbolically said goodbye to his character in a concert with the song Rock and Roll Suicide. But Bowie mainly used Ziggy Stardust as a symbol for his glam rock period and simply continued to use the name David Bowie on his albums. Yet this farewell does similarities with the farewell of The Weeknd. In both cases,
David Bowie's name is not David Bowie. That's the funny part. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's another pseudonym. Yeah.
It's like that's a bad example because that's not his real name. Go ahead.
In both cases, the artist using the parting of a name to mark the end of a very successful period. Bowie stated that he no longer felt like performing further and that he wanted to concentrate on other activities. Indeed, he would never act as a character again after that, but unlike Tesfaye, David Robert Jones did not say goodbye to his stage name David Bowie. See, they hit on it. He kept it until his death in 2016.
There was a Davy Jones and the Monkees. That's why he didn't use that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. At least he kept his first name, right? So he still was David.
Mm-hmm.
More recently in the Netherlands, there is an example of Caroline van der Leeuw, who had a great success as Caro Emerald, but lacked the creative freedom to come up with her own ideas. She now performs under the name The Jordan. Still, Hallman thinks that a well-known artist will not quickly get rid of his or her old name. You never get rid of your old musical baggage. You carry it with you forever. It is part of your artist's DNA. Yeah, just like Justin Timberlake can never escape NSYNC. No matter how famous he gets, he's always going to be that guy from NSYNC, in a way.
That's who he is. Yep. The NSYNC guy. You're stuck with it, buddy.
Even with Abel Tesfaye, the name The Weeknd will be reflected in small, keep appearing on concert posters, for example, to keep attracting old fans. Yeah, artist formerly known as Prince, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they'll do.
John...
Artist formerly known as The Weeknd, Abel Tesfaye will be performing tonight at the arena. That's what they'll be saying. That's my short story on The Weeknd changing his name. I mean, Abel changing his name from The Weeknd. And, well, I'm excited to hear his new albums. I actually really like the artist. I listened to all his albums. At first, I didn't like him so much because I didn't like his attitude. And he wrote a lot of songs about doing cocaine, which I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Cannot relate to being on a cocaine binge. But, during the pandemic, as they were talking about Blinding Lights, really just made me feel not so bad about being stuck inside for 2 years. So, Yeah, I've basically been listening to all his albums ever since Blinding Lights. So, anyways, on to this day in history.
This day in history. On May 17th, you might think it was a useless day in history, but no! In 1510, Italian artist Sandro Botticelli, one of the greatest painters of the Florentine Renaissance, died. That doesn't make it a great day. But in 1792, meeting on what is now Wall Street, in New York City, 24 business took the initial steps of forming the New York Stock Exchange. So happy birthday to the New York Stock Exchange. 1866, French composer Eric Satie, whose spare, unconventional, often witty style exerted a major influence in 20th century music, was born in Honfleur. That's in France. In 1875, the first Kentucky Derby was run in Churchill Downs in Louisville and killed 14 horses. No, just kidding. That was a story we did a week ago. But all the horses suddenly dying in races at Churchill Downs, actually continuing recently. 1900, The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum was first published. And it, of course, became a film. 1918, Swedish operatic soprano singer Brigitte Nielsen, who is celebrated as a Wagnerian interpreter and known for her powerful, rich voice, was born in Vostra Karup. Well, good for you. 1918, she was born. 1939, the first televised sporting event in the United States, a collegiate baseball game between Princeton and Columbia, was aired on NBC. In 1996, U.S. President Bill Clinton signed Megan's Law, which required that law enforcement officials notify local schools, daycare centers, and residents of the presence of registered sex offenders in their communities. In 2004, Massachusetts became the first U.S. state to legalize same-sex marriage, as it began issuing marriage license to gay couples. And in 1954, the school segregation was outlawed by the U.S. Supreme Court. On this day in 1954, lawyer Thurgood Marshall scored a landmark victory as the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously ruled in the Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, that racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. Landmark because it was a 9-0 decision. And on this day, Edward Jenner, English surgeon, was born on May 17th in 1749. In 1971, Maxima, the Queen Consort of the Netherlands, it's her birthday. She was born on this day in 1971. Can I say Maxima?
Happy birthday, Maxima! Why doesn't she have a party like the king does?
Yeah, she's a blistering 52 today. Sugar Ray Leonard was born on this day. American boxer and television commentator. 1956, he was born. In 1936, Dennis Hopper, American actor and director, was born. 1886, Alfonso VIII, King of Spain, was born. And in 1886, Alfonso was born. 1866, Eric Satie, the French composer, was born. And what day is it? Well, let's find out. It is it's Emergency Medical Services for Children Day. Wow. Total, it's National Cherry Cobbler Day. Get some sliced ice cream.
Another pie, huh?
Oh yeah, another pie day. Gonna have some pie. National Graduation Tassel Day. Wow, that's a very specific thing. National Pack Rat Day. So yeah, you know a pack rat, we all do. I do. One, so get them to throw some shit out. National Idaho Day. So everybody in Idaho is celebrating that they're in Idaho, and everybody who's not in Idaho is celebrating that they're not in Idaho. National Walnut Day is today. And it's also World Telecommunication and Information Society Day, so I have to go to work today. World Hypertension Day also today. So those are today's collection of various special interest day, and you can all practice them on your own good time. I don't know how you celebrate Graduation Tassel Day, But
I guess I
play
have
with
to
your
get
tassel.
my tassel and start spinning it in the air or something.
And just like do the squishy thing with it.
Yeah, everyone does that with their tassel.
So squishy your tassel today. I don't even know what that's called. That's it, man. Those are all the special interest nonsense days of the day.
All
World
right.
Telecommunication and
This has
Information
been Allison
Society.
getting hyped for Abel's new music, I guess, or The Weeknd's last album. And I'm gonna go twirl my tassel in the air outside as I scream happy birthday to Maxima in the streets. I hope to see you tomorrow for some more news from Europe.
This is Roger with the non-war, non-shooting, and non-people complaining about each other day. For this day, May 17th, 2023 edition of Before Coffee. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.